A new name in the transfer portal for the Hawkeyes. It will be a potential quarterback class that's going to be a big one. We'll talk portal. Iowa has their bowl destination, plus tough weekend for basketball. A busy Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can continue the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, portal season is here. In fact, today it officially has opened, and we see a number of names coming in. We will get into that, including a potential new one, a new name at the quarterback position for the Hawkeyes. We'll get into that a little bit later on. We got plenty of basketball to talk about over the weekend. Hawkeye men's team, big comeback against Michigan, have a shot at the end to upset the Wolverines. That just short, but I think a lot to take away from that performance at Michigan, a game where you're certainly outmatched in a lot of different ways, and Iowa hung around against the Wolverines. And the women's basketball team suffered their first loss of the season as they fall out in New York against Tennessee in a game that a lot of what-ifs to play over the weekend for the basketball teams. But we open up today with the bowl destination, and I'll be honest, it anticipated throughout the week that this is the way that it was trending. After initially it looked like after Iowa wrapped up Black Friday with the win against Nebraska, that Tampa was going to be the likely destination, the ReliaQuest Bowl, formerly the Outback Bowl, that was going to be it. But then after the Michigan upset against Ohio State, you could see what was happening and the potential for Tampa getting Michigan against an SEC school, be it Ole Miss, Alabama, whatever it turned out to be. That's what they were targeting. That's what they were working for. And eventually that's what they got. So Iowa drops to the Music City Bowl. They'll take on Missouri. Honestly, it's just so ho-hum. And bowl games have, for me, just lost so much. I mean, I would be sitting on pins and needles in the past, just waiting what the destination's going to be. Is there going to be surprises? I didn't even take a look at the full look at the bowl games until here Monday morning. I just doesn't do it anymore. And I'm going to guess that I'm not alone. Now, here's the bigger question. Is this going to lead to less and less people attending after we get through the college football playoff and the excitement that that's going to generate? What does that mean for the future of bowl games? And for a program like Iowa that more seasons than not is not going to be in the college football playoff, is not going to be competing for national championships, what does it mean for the program going forward and the importance of getting to a college football playoff in comparison to just going to a nice bowl game? Now, how perceptions change, and with it, how the fan base changes with the new look of college football. And yeah, there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of things that you look at and you're just kind of left scratching your head. But overall, I think I'm not alone on that thought. Missouri, we'll see. Hopefully Missouri will not opt out of this one. I don't think they can, after they had the 4-game series there in the mid-aughts that was taken away, as Missouri didn't want to have the difficult non-conference game against Iowa, so that went away. And then when we had the bowl game after the 2020 season, and they sent all their guys home, they got sick, and they weren't able to play in that one. Well, the excuses are gone now, Missouri. We're going to see you again. And had a great win against them. Blaine Gabbert and company in the Missouri game in the Insight Bowl, years back, decade or so ago. That was a fun one. It kind of capped a disappointing season. We'll see if the same thing can happen here. Caleb Johnson will not be playing in the game. Brendan Sullivan, though, looks like he's going to be good to go. Coming back off that pretty substantial ankle injury that he sustained in the UCLA game, he's going to be out there and likely going to be your starter at the quarterback position. And this is going to be important for Brendan Sullivan. As we mentioned, they are shopping in the portal for quarterbacks, and they're shopping for a myriad of reasons. At the top of the list, well, they only got a couple of them right now. Jimmy Sullivan will come in. He's part of the 2025 recruiting class. He will be here. But you're talking about 3 quarterbacks. As we found out this year, you don't want to go into a season with only 3 quarterbacks. And you throw into the fact that you also have now a quarterback that Brendan Sullivan, he plays physical. He plays a style of football that there are going to be impacts. There are going to be times that you're going to see him banged up. And even if he can stay the course of the season, how likely is it that he's going to be even close to 100% throughout the course of the year? Highly, highly unlikely. So we got that component to it, and that part of it overall, definitely a disappointing part. Is seeing the way that this is played out. Never got a chance to see Marco Lioness, and a lot of people after what we saw in the bowl game and that brief glimpse of him a year ago in the bowl game, hope to see more. We would have saw him likely in the final couple of games of the season, and he had an injury, a pretty substantial one, and with a broken hand, well, they had to go a different way. So that's kind of where we are, and that's where we are at the quarterback spot. New names in that Missouri Music City Bowl. Hey, Nashville's fun. I guess there's a selling point. Nashville's a good city. That's something pretty good. Can't get too upset about that, but that's where we are. Bowl games, it's a different world. Where I care about is the college football playoff. And I thought this team had an opportunity to get there this year. It's not going to happen. And as we know, you are what your record says you are, and you're 8-4, and this is what you get. One more chance to see these guys. Bunch of the seniors. Sounds like a lot of the guys are going to play. There'll likely be, I would anticipate, maybe another opt out or two. That's just the new reality of college football. And as these guys are talking to agents and finding out, yes, Jamari Harris isn't going to be there, but who else might join him? Caleb Johnson not going to be there. It's difficult to get excited about bowl games. And that's sad. It really is. But it is easy to get excited about basketball. And as I've talked about throughout the course of the year, I think this basketball team is going to be a little bit different. Let's take a look back at the weekend. Lost to Michigan for the men, lost to Tennessee for the women. We will get into that. And a new name on the transfer portal at the quarterback position that potentially Iowa could be looking at. We'll get into that as we roll through here on Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now, you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoroughly curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. I did this for my dad a couple of years ago. It absolutely was a home run for him, and you can do the same for a family member or a friend of your own. Legendary steaks to more mouth-watering desserts and a whole lot more. Save 50% off statewide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners, you're going to get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com. OMAHA, omahasteaks.com, and an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Trent Condon back with you once again on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. The weekend that was in hoops, wrestling with a couple of dual wins. They wrestled down in St. Charles, Missouri. Had a couple there. Talked to a couple of people that went to the meets. So it was a really cool experience seeing the guys down there. But not a whole lot to say about the wrestling front as we await a few more decisions, and the schedule certainly going to ramp up. Let's start men first here and take a look back at the game against Michigan. Now, I felt like Iowa was going to be in big trouble going into this game, and a couple of the reasons. The biggest is Iowa has shown to be not a very good rebounding team. And when you go into a game against a good rebounding team in Michigan, a team with a couple of 7-footers, a team that is more athletic than you, I thought that was going to spell some pretty big trouble. And inside, those big guys, they were trouble. Danny Wolf, he had a big game, even as he wasn't knocking down threes. He had 13 points, and then he had Golden, who had 20 in the game, and also 11 rebounds. Those two combined for 25 rebounds in the game. They were difficult. In fact, Golden, he drew 9 fouls in the game. Wolf, he drew 4 fouls. So that shows you. Early on, Owen Freeman goes down with foul trouble. We know the Fran McCaffrey 2-foul rule. And here's another component that does frustrate me. Now, it didn't play out here as Iowa was able to come back after trailing in the game. What was it, 20-6 at one point, and able to come back and make it relatively close going into the halftime locker room. But, all right, Owen Freeman's not going to play. You got this hard and fast rule for Fran McCaffrey. The guys aren't going to play when they pick up that second foul in the first half. So you get 19 minutes of Owen Freeman. Yes, I understand the theory. You want your best guys on the floor at the end, right? You want those guys out there. You have to have them out there to close the game. You want to have your best. However, in this scenario, where Owen Freeman's only able to play 19 minutes in the game because of that rule, because he's sitting for 18 straight minutes, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Because so many times, by the time you get to that end of game scenario, you're out of it. Now, it wasn't the case here. So this one, Ray McCaffrey, he gets one in the tally box for him, the way that it worked, because you had him, you had Freeman out there, and were able to come back and have an opportunity. He leaves the game with 4 fouls. He doesn't foul out, so advantage Fran, at least for one night. This game was all over the place. Another direction I want to go is we saw the continued struggles out of Peyton Sanford. Finished the game 6 of 20. Now came back, made some shots and some big ones in the second half. 4-10 from behind the arc and hit his last 2. You just can't do this, though. If Peyton Sanford continues to struggle at this kind of level, shooting 30% from the floor, he can't have it. This team cannot overcome this poor shooting from Peyton Sanford. They need more. And if physically he is struggling and the shot's off, when we've seen different times in his career, when the shot goes off, it's really off. If that continues, you can't have an 0-9 performance and a half. I was not good enough to be able to overcome that. Brock Harding did some good things. 1 of 6, though, from the floor. He finished the game. He also fouled out with his 5 fouls that he had in this one. Really, I think my biggest takeaway, and I'm baffled that we're even here, but it's true. Riley Mulvey needs to play more. Riley Mulvey continues to give them minutes. Riley Mulvey, he's not an impact player, but for a backup big, I think he's shown enough on the defensive end of the floor that he needs to be that first reserve off the bench out of the big guys. He needs to be there over Evan Bronze. And that played out in terms of the minutes of this game, but Riley Mulvey, he's over there waving the towel, a little bit goofy, but you know what? When he has been put into games, has shown he's at least capable of being that, being more than just 5 fouls. And I think that's really all you get from Evan Bronze. I think you can get more from Riley Mulvey. The other part is Laje Dembele is struggling mightily. He, in the plus minus of the box score, is minus 18. We saw him a year ago show those glimpses. And during his freshman campaign, he got excited about him, but he looks lost on the defensive end of the floor. He still's firing up shots, but that confidence that we saw so much a season ago, it feels like that has dissipated. Maybe him coming off the bench is the right route. Now, they're also hamstrung at this point because without Seydou Traore, they don't have another guy I think you feel confident in. I like Tajo coming in. He at least brings some athleticism. He's incredibly raw, and you see that when he's in there. But he was able to make a couple of plays when he was out there on the floor. You just need more. Price Sanford continues to play at a high level. They set up the final play to go to him. It's a play that Fran McCaffrey absolutely loves, that kind of backside when you're putting him from the sideline. In fact, going back to the Northwestern game, I was surprised that they didn't come up with that play because it's one of Fran's favorites. You see it all the time in the NBA. Get that double staggered screen, and then you sneak a guy back behind the play and try to get the corner 3. Tough shot by Price Sanford. And I love his teammates coming over to him after that one fell short. Had a hand in his face, got it up there, just short off the rim. To do that, though, to battle back a couple of different times, to take the lead in the second half, to get it back even after you trailed again by 8, I saw something different about this squad. And that's why I continue to maintain. I think this Iowa basketball team has a chance. Not that they're going to be. There's nothing definitive about this. We're still talking about a one-and-done scenario come the NCAA tournament. They just seem a little bit different. I want to see more Drew Thelwell. I want to see him get 22, 24 minutes a game, not the 18 that he got in this one. He's a difference maker. And when Brock Harding is struggling, we just got to be quicker, I guess, to the trigger of putting him in there. We'll see about Traore if he's going to be able to go against Iowa State. It ramps up this week. Here comes Iowa State. They're ranked 3rd in the country in the latest AP poll. It is their highest ranking since 1987. And this is going to surprise a lot of people. But the Ken Pomeroy numbers, if you're a stat geek like I am, you probably have a subscription to kenpom.com, and you will see the projected score of this game, which is normally incredibly close to what the point spread is. So when you open up your FanDuel app, probably Wednesday afternoon, you're going to see what the point spread is for the Iowa State matchup. And I would anticipate that it's going to be around 5. That's the number that Ken Pomeroy has. Iowa State favored by 5. And I'm going to guess a lot of people are going to lay the points with the Cyclones. Be careful. Now, Iowa, yes, there's been some rough ones in this series, but the home team has had the advantage more times than not. Iowa not only has won some of these games, they've blown good Iowa State teams out. Now, I would also warn you, this Iowa State team, they're different this year. This is not just what TJ Otzelberger's been his first 3 years over in Ames. This is a team that not just defends you and they'll clutch and they'll grab and it'll be annoying, but they got some offensive firepower and they're going to be different. But don't be surprised when that point spread comes out. I had some people, Iowa State's going to be favored by double figures. It's not going to be the case. Iowa State's not going to be favored by 10 points in Carver Hawkeye Arena. It's not going to happen. Just be ready for that when that comes out. Let's jump over to the women's side of things. A disappointing loss. And I anticipated that Iowa was going to lose to Michigan. I thought the Iowa women were going to get this done against Tennessee. And for many different stretches of this one, it looked like they were going to. But the story of the game is 30 turnovers. To turn it over 30 times at any level of basketball, it's unthinkable. There's just absolutely no way that you think that that's the way it's going to go. Down the stretch, Iowa was not able to get shots. Iowa was not able to get good looks at the rim. Lucy Olson came back. She played really well. 5 assists. She leads the team with 23 points in the game. She was really good. She had 4 turnovers. But you go through the regulars here. 4 turnovers for Lucy Olson. 4 turnovers for Addison O'Grady. 4 turnovers for Kylie Fierbach. 7 turnovers for Hannah Stolke. The athleticism of Tennessee really gave Iowa trouble. They tried Guyton for a little bit. You saw Mulaney in there. Taylor McCabe, she only played 12 minutes a game. I was a little bit surprised by that. She turned it over a couple of times. Just top to bottom, it was a struggle. Strumlow was out there for a little bit. They just couldn't handle the pressure and the athleticism of Tennessee. And that's concerning because you look at some of the teams they're going to see come Big Ten play, athleticism is paramount. You watch UCLA. Got the size inside with Betts, but it's a whole lot more. Juju Watkins and USC, what they have there. You go through and you look at some of these Big Ten teams and you see Iowa's lack of athleticism maybe showing up and it becomes concerning. There's no doubt this is an NCAA tournament team. You're not going to freak out about a loss like this, but the way that it happened, the fashion, the way the end of the game went, getting outscored 11-1 down the stretch, that is frustrating. First loss of the Jan Jensen era. It's a good Tennessee team, a lot of talent, as you could see on that Tennessee squad. I was going to have to play better, going to have to take care of the ball, and now they get another top 25 matchup on Wednesday. That one will be at 8 o'clock tip-off on FS1, also against Iowa State. And a big week for both basketball programs, both looking to bounce back after tough losses over the weekend. Let's get back into the football side of things. Transfer portal has opened up. We got some names. We got a new name at the quarterback spot that Iowa might be potentially looking at, and we'll do that as we continue. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you can bet $5. You're going to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right there on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Trent Condon back with you one final time here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. So mention there is a new name potentially on the horizon for the Iowa football team as they look to continue to find a new quarterback. Now, I believe that I was going to go after multiple quarterbacks here and not just recruit multiple quarterbacks, but look to bring in multiple quarterbacks. I anticipate one of those guys is somebody that's going to be in the fight for the starting quarterback job, or maybe even a guy they believe that can be the starter. Now, what you also have to think about here is what does that mean for Brendan Sullivan? If Iowa goes out there and brings in a surefire starter, does Brendan Sullivan look around and say, you know what? I want to play in my final season. And he goes to the portal. We'll see on that front. But I believe there's going to be multiple. Again, they just got two in there right now with Jackson Stratton and with Brendan Sullivan. You throw in the fact Jimmy Sullivan's coming in the class of 2025, probably going to be a long road before he's ready to go. But I also anticipate not just a guy that has a chance to start next season, but also more of a developmental guy, a guy that has 2, 3, maybe even 4 years of eligibility left, that is the route that they're going to take. So that going on. And the new name in the portal is a redshirt freshman from Auburn, a guy that has been around a little bit, Hank Brown. Played a little bit this season, completed 63% of his passes, had over 400 yards in limited playing time a year ago. Big kid, 6'4", 220 pounds, big size, can move around, not a statue back there at the quarterback position. And I think what we're going to see is now what Tim Lester wants, what he wants this offense to look at. Because though he fixed the running game this season, Caleb Johnson had a lot to do with that, but he was able to do it. You're going to be talking about an offensive line that's going to be certainly not as veteran as it was this season. There's work to be done also in the portal at the tackle position, so you have that component going into it. But a guy that can move, a guy that can make plays on the run, I think that's going to be something that we're going to be looking at with the portal. There's going to be a ton of these names. And don't take Hank Brown being the latest that I was deep in on him and it's eminent. That's not even close to what this is. But there's a lot going on. The portal entries, Marco mentioned Marco Linus. He is in there. So basically, the whole Brian Ferentz, John Budmeyer experience, that was terrible. That's over. The guys that were recruited by them outside of Jimmy Sullivan, who Tim Lester continued to recruit after he got onto campus as the new offensive coordinator, it's gone. This is going to go down historically as one of the worst stretches of quarterback recruiting that's probably ever happened at the power conference level. I mean, you just look at the ineptitude, and then you look at these guys, how they struggled both in Iowa City, but also the guys, how much they struggled away from Iowa City. And just year after year, quarterback after quarterback, just how bad it was. I don't know what the philosophy was in recruiting quarterbacks. A lot of times it just felt like, well, he's showing interest. Okay, we're good. It was almost in a way taking the easy way out. Now, this is what happens when you have somebody like Brian Ferentz that doesn't know quarterbacks, doesn't know what he's looking for. And you can ride toughness, leadership, those kind of things. But what are you actually looking for is in qualities as a passer, what you're trying to do offensively. And that's why I believe Brian Ferentz struggled so much as an offensive coordinator. It's not that the guy didn't know football. I mean, that's silly. It's not that he didn't know what he was looking for as it pertained to building an offense. He just didn't know how to put it all together. The actual coordinating of an offense is something he just didn't have the skill set for. And we saw that continually happen when he didn't have dudes. He couldn't do anything. I mean, it just cratered so much. And then you make the wrong decision. Zach Wilson against Spencer Petras, and it just continues and continues. And it's that big boulder rolling down the hill, right? There's no stopping it. And that's unfortunately what happened at the quarterback spot. I believe in Lester. I believe that he's going to find the right combination. We'll see about, in terms of finances, what Iowa's going to be offered. We talked about Miller Moss. Right away, came back. There was interest on both sides, but the price tag was much too hefty for Iowa. And Louisville or Missouri might be the destination there. So maybe we should set our sights a little bit different. Take a look at that developmental guy, redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore, something like that, and a guy ready to play. Minnesota found a guy. Max Brosmer was anything that Iowa had this season. Indiana found a guy. Curtis Rourke comes in. We're talking about quarterbacks coming in from Ohio in Rourke and from New Hampshire in Brosmer. Like, those guys are out there. And those guys didn't cost an arm and a leg. We're not talking about $500,000 for those kind of players. They're out there. It's going to be up to the staff to identify and to figure out exactly what they're looking for and the kind of guy that's going to fit. The guy that's going to fit in an offense that has to look different. But here's another big piece. Iowa's got to be better at the wide receiver position. Jacob Gill turned out to be a nice wide receiver. They need a healthy season out of Seth Anderson. He's got speed, he's got ability. We need to see this guy healthy. They need that down the field threat because they just don't have it. Can Jarrett Bowie elevate? Can we see something out of Dayton Howard? And are there any young guys? Reese Vanderzee we saw throughout the course of the season. Needs some more speed though. And I think that's something you're going to see at the wide receiver position. Iowa's going to continue to attack, and getting after the speed component of this. It's going to be certainly a necessity. That's where we are in the portal. And with it opening up today, there's going to be a ton of names in there. Grant Leaper, tight end, he has entered the portal. Kyson Van Voot, preferred walk-on, along with Trent Kakarice from Grundy Center, I think he was from. Both those guys are going to go there. Here's one thing to remember. Keaton Crawford, another one, defensive lineman scholarship guy, is the new scholarship limits that go into effect next August. They're going to be impactful. And you're going to see a lot of these walk-ons. Walk-ons that in the past not only would have been a part of the program and part of special teams and development, all those things. Guys that eventually would have played, they're going to be leaving. This is not a good thing for Iowa, at least in the here and now. And unless something really changes on the financial side of things, and Iowa, with the Swarm Collective, is able to be involved at the higher levels of the sport, Iowa's in good shape. But they're not in great shape. We'll put it that way. And it sucks for the fans, right? You got to buy tickets and you buy gear and you do all the things you're supposed to. And now, on top of it, you're buying your season license, you're buying your season tickets, you're going to the games, you're doing all the things you're supposed to do as a fan. And now you got to give more. It sucks, but it's the reality of where we are. And until this thing gets figured out all the way through, and that is where we are. We are with you each and every day. Locked On Hawkeyes. Thanks for being with us here. We got Scott Docterman coming up later in the week. We'll talk with Doc about everything going on with Iowa football, get his perspective on the quarterback spot. Also, we will give you game recaps, and we'll go right after the Iowa State women's and men's basketball games Wednesday and Thursday, respectively. I will be in Iowa City on Thursday. In fact, stop on out. I'm going to be at Jethro's doing my radio show from noon to 2 over at the Jethro's in Iowa City, Coralville. You can stop on out. Going to have a few giveaways there as well, doing my show noon to 2, and then getting geared up for Cy-Hawk basketball. Looking forward to that on Thursday evening, and you can check that out on the Iowa Sports Radio Network, and you can hear it on our flagship station, 106.3 KXNO in Des Moines, and across the state. We got stations in the Sioux City, in the Quad Cities, Cedar Rapids, and Iowa City on the Iowa Sports Radio Network. We're with you every day talking Hawkeyes, Locked On Hawkeyes. Thanks for being with us here today. Hey, don't forget, we got you covered as well. Locked On Big Ten, Craig Sheeman talking all things Big Ten as we make our way through football season and get ready for basketball to continue to ramp up. Your favorite team, your team every day. That's what we do here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast and across the Locked On Network. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.